you think about like something that would need to be rendered in order to unite this kingdom of kind of separate kingdoms, there's like historically always been like a multitude of different fiefdoms and kingdoms and power centers and like massively complicated histories. And
well, this brings us to a specific point. Are you aware of the significance of September the 16th and who Owen Glyndŵr is?
I'm not.
You're English, so I don't expect you to be. Owen Glyndŵr was the last Prince of Wales. He was defeated in battle by Edward I, and ever since there's been what's called the Prince of Wales, which is an English king's son, the next in line to the throne, gets made an honorary title, Prince of Wales. Owen Glyndŵr died on September the 16th, and September the 16th is a national holiday in Wales, although we don't have a bank holiday because it's not recognised by the state as Owen Glyndŵr Day. Now then, Prince Charles happened to visit Cardiff on September the 16th as his first act as king. This was a mistake. Because that's Owen Glyndŵr Day. And he's been Prince of Wales the whole time. Now, Martin Sheen has made an interesting video where he's on the beach talking about this. And I recommend you Google Martin Sheen, Owen Glyndŵr, because it's well worth looking at. And basically, it's a catch-22. It's like either he spent the whole of his life being Prince of Wales and didn't even know what fucking Owen Glyndŵr Day was and what the significance of the Prince of Wales is, or he's so insensitive and so rude that he deliberately went to Cardiff on September the 16th. Never mind how grieving he was, he just missed the fucking point. And it's one or the other. So
That's very fucking weird.
That's really weird. Okay, I don't know who his advisors are, but going to Cardiff on that day.
I don't believe that there's any way that could have been a mistake.
No,
because,
so it's a
like,
power
he
move.
has advisors who are steeped in the shit. Like,
Exactly.
There's no fucking way that was an accident.
So what they're saying in that move is Wales will never be free.
Can you reiterate like the kind of main? So assuming like
I'll read from the Evening Post. There's a letter which speaks of it. It's a brilliant letter. I'll read it. It's very careful. Both sides must exist harmoniously, it's called. Christopher Morgan Ace, letters, September the 17th, writes passionately as a Welshman, veteran, pensioner and royalist on the investiture of William as his new Prince of Wales, and his views are to be respected. However, there may be many who believe that the right time to have made the announcement was not immediately after the Queen's death, especially as the First Minister of Wales had no advance warning of the proclamation, a courtesy which surely should have been forthcoming. To say that this country is not run by Wales but Westminster is only partially correct, for many issues are devolved and determined by the Senedd. Indeed, those wishing the demise of the institution are only a very insignificant part of the electorate, as every poll has shown. That's a hilarious joke. The ancient history of Cymru must be recognised and Owen Glyndŵr celebrated as a national hero. We must not abandon our heritage at this particular time, for we are all products of our proud past. It must be possible for royalists and republicans to exist harmoniously, otherwise democracy fails us all. The task the Queen bore, she passed with flying colours. After all the pomp and ceremony, let her now rest in peace. Okay, so that's the view of Wales.
So, can you speak to kind of how that informs, like, a take on, you know, there's an obvious tension between the idea of the royalty housed in Westminster over these nations versus, like, a devolution where it is...
Hold, please. Sorry, there was a glitch in the matrix.
It happens.
It does. So you were saying about devolution.
Yeah, like that is such an interesting story. But so yeah, like where does that leave the question of like whether it is there's I don't know this tension between the royal family versus devolution and the ability for kind of Wales to govern Wales and for the people of Wales to be represented.
So
kind of more.
If it goes to referendum in Wales, it will win by roughly 80% according to all preliminary polling. Therefore, it is not considered prudent to even suggest the idea that it be allowed to be considered as a thought in Westminster. It's off the table because we can't imagine, like Scotland and having a referendum in Scotland was more contentious and a bit more 50-50. In Wales, it's unanimous.
Well, I mean, by all analysis, I'm sure, like any of this devolution would have like a massive effect, but I think that
we'd be in the same boat as a country like Iceland. We'd have roughly a couple of million and a beautiful place, and we'd be free to make our own way. We wouldn't be enemies of England. It's not like we'd bomb the Severn Bridge and cut all ties.
No, of course. I was going to say though that I think in terms of the kind of strategy from the point of view of the Crown, the biggest kind of threat is probably from Scotland, like at least economically. Because
the gas and
I think it will naturally lead a knock-on effect like that. I think there's movements for this in Northern Ireland and as I said earlier, like also Cornwall, and I mean it seems
let's get away from the politics and into the magic, because there's a fairy story waiting to be unpackaged, and it's this idea of what a king is and the politics of it. A king trying to hold a nation together using his will alone isn't really what's going on here. This generation, the Caroline generation, that's everybody that was born after Prince Charles, so everybody that's like 70 and younger.
Yeah, I mean, I think it circles back to the earlier idea that whatever is going on here and whatever that magic might be is going to be a communion between wise leadership and people that are kind of moved and in sync with that somehow. That it's sort of is speaking to something that is already there. I think that like in a way it wouldn't be honest if it was like a sort of, I don't know, a king that hypnotizes or a queen that hypnotizes their people into kind of following them like a Pied Piper. That's not really good leadership in this context. Like somehow like the role of the good king or queen is to intuit and apprehend a deeper spirit that wants to come forth in their people, that is like, it's yearning to come forward but doesn't quite know how, and they're there to kind of shepherd that across, but
well said.
But it's also something that, like, I mean, how the fuck do you that's like a ridiculous thing. I mean, like, you can't imagine that in a movie, or how do you tell a story of that?
Well, you're telling a brilliant story of it, and what I'd like to do is be a bit fancy with the narrative and start writing a letter between you and me, because we're recording the conversation and we can broadcast it to individuals. I'd like to start the letter, Dear William, we are your friends. Listen to this and let us continue our cordial communication, because you need us. From the Time Travelers Guild. That's my letter. I just wrote.
Yeah. Nice. There's like a useful word perhaps like in for what we're talking about, I think, which is telos.
Yeah.
Just the idea of kind of like the sort of sensing the future that wants to be unpacked. That there's sort of I think that's always I don't know, life can feel very chaotic, but there's also this thing of I could sort of imagine like this sort of wise hand that perhaps we all like yearn for at times, that is just this sort of like wise teacher that could just sort of intersect with your life and just kind of see you and see like the points at which you're hung up or like fucked up or like, you know, whatever, and just like nudge you back on course and just be like, oh, you need to read this, blah blah blah, and just sort of like, and that flourishing of being able to kind of then become like way more than you were before, just this sort of like growth, the way that we sort of, the dream version of life is that there's just this endless unpacking, this endless sort of discovery of depth in oneself, and you know how that can kind of blossom into the world in different ways. And yet, because of the way that the world is, of course, it's complicated. We're all like, you know, we're all struggling to fucking, you know, deal with
life.
Everything.
Life.
Yeah.
And it's a universal. Life is a universal. It's the one leveler. Alright, so one of the angles that people have been griping on about on Facebook is like, yeah, he's got a big house and he doesn't have to pay an inheritance tax, and it's all like, yeah, he thinks he's a man of the people, but he's not, obviously, because he's got a big house and loads of houses and billions of quid. And that's true. But he's alive, and so we're in the same boat. He feels.
Well, we all get sick and die. We all we all suffer one way or the other.
So now
like,
is a ripe time to be
I think we don't
friends.
Talk about enough is that we all inherit intergenerational trauma.
Exactly. And being heir to the throne is not the kind of trauma that I would wish on myself. Not my bag.
I mean, it's so fucking complicated and like really fucking dark, isn't it? Like,
it is, yeah.
And a lot of stuff that we don't know about, but yeah, I mean, my God.
So
like, what the fuck? Like,
we can extend a hand of empathy to that family, and that will level us to the point that we're able to have a meaningful dialogue with them. That's my wish.
Well, I think that kind of perhaps the thrust of our conversation has been that actually some degree of dialogue is the only way in which like this thing has any relevance and survives into like
exactly
the next generation. And so the dialogue has to be had one way or another. So,
you and me,
like it's
Ollie,
sort of a mic drop, you know, like you sort of like, if you want to not just like fade into insignificant, I mean, what would happen? I guess it would become a reality TV show. It would be the only way of paying the bills in these fucking estates.
That's Wales's plan, by the way, is to run a reality TV show to vote in the next Prince of Wales. Okay?
Oh my fucking God.
In Welsh. And you have to be able to speak Welsh fluently to qualify, and that's the first fucking test. They're calling it Pobl y Cwm, which means people of the valley.
But so how would it work to... but that would be after some kind of split, where there's...
No, that's before the split. That's how we decide who's going to inherit.
I thought that was the whole thing with the proclamation that you were talking about being offensive earlier.
We had a Prince of Wales. He was murdered. There haven't been any Princes of Wales left because they all get murdered. The next guy lasted a week in the job. His father, Owen Glyndor's father, was known as Llywelyn the Last. The king. The last king of Wales was Llywelyn the Last. They don't teach this at schools. And they should. The fact that Wales isn't on the curriculum of the English school system is so offensive.